everybody. Welcome to another Comic Source Comic Boom collaboration. Time for some more daily Spawn. We're up to issue number 33. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and dive right in. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And as you can see, Violator's on the cover, which is sort of interesting. They put him right on the cover because of the way the story plays out inside, and you'll see what I mean in a second. So we look at the credits here. We've got Todd McFarlane on story, Greg Capullo and McFarlane handle the art, Tom Orzechowski on letters, Stephen Oliff and Quinn Suppley with Oli Optics on colors, with a special thanks to Kevin Conrad, Chance Wolfe, and Julia Simmons. So it starts off, we see somebody who is playing with little bits of Spawn's costume. You know, we know that this symbiote had some issues with the battle with Angela, took a while to heal, now has a different look. Well, it looks like somebody was able to get some of it, capture some of it, and they've made like a little, almost like a voodoo doll, and they're inflicting pain on it, they're putting nails in it, whatever. It could be part of the reason the costume's having so much trouble, why it looks so different right now. And the voiceover in the meantime is talking about how, you know, you're going to feel the physical pain. It's time to come back at you. I'm going to figure out where your weakness is, which I take to be your heart, just based on, and we know they're talking about Al Simmons, right? Because he's talking to this voodoo doll that looks like Spawn. And then in the last panel, we get a look, and that's what's interesting about choosing to put Violator on the cover. Like halfway through the story, this creature, this person, what have you, is kept in the shadow. It's like they're almost trying to keep a secret of who it is, but you already chose to put Violator on the cover, so you kind of already let the cat out of the bag, which is kind of interesting. So meanwhile, back in the alley that Spawn calls home, we learn that him and a bunch of his homeless friends have been debating for hours, actually, on whether or not Spawn should stay there or not. And Spawn's saying that he should find a better place to go, or a different place to go, so that these threats, these people that are coming after him, won't endanger his friends, these homeless guys. And the homeless guys are like, no, we already told you that, you know, the people that attacked you weren't our pals, right? And what they're referring to is the Blood Feud miniseries, which is actually a series that focuses on the costume, the symbiotic costume, written by Alan Moore, which I'm sure we'll cover at some point. But Spawn's point is, it doesn't matter who the guys were. He seems to attract danger, and he wants to keep them safe. So Spawn's like, man, Bobby, you've been giving me a really bad time, telling me that me leaving was a load of crap. Like, what's going on? You know, what's your problem? And Bobby's like, you're my problem, right? You want to run again? Fine. You know, that's your call, you know, but don't try to blame it on us. Like you're trying to protect us, like we're fragile. You know, it's not like we didn't have troubles before you came. It's not like we won't have troubles after you leave, right? That's just the way it is. And that's not going to change just because you leave. So we're still going to get shot at. We're still going to get mugged. We're still going to get beat up. So, you know, don't blame your, you know, reason for running on us. We'll survive. You know, we always have. And Spawn's like, yeah, I get that, but I'm making it that much worse because I've got all these people after me. And it's a great montage piece that McFarlane and Capullo do here. We see Overkill, we see Violator, we see Curse, we see Redeemer, we see Chapel with that demonic face after Spawn scarred him, and we see Tony Twist, and we see Jason Wynn. So yeah, Spawn has any number of enemies, and he's right in that they're going to keep coming after him. But I sort of agree with Bobby, because whether Spawn's there or not, people are going to know that Spawn cares about these homeless guys. And even if Spawn's not there, they're going to come for those homeless guys, trying to attract Spawn. So I really think Spawn needs to stay there so that he can help protect them. If he leaves, it's kind of worse in my mind. So Bobby's trying to convince him. He's like, well, you know, you're talking about it being more fair if you leave so you won't attract so much violence, but what's fair about life? We're already society's garbage, you know, we're already their problem. So if you want to do something about it, then do something about it. But don't whine. And Spawn's like, well, what are you talking about? And he goes, look, somebody, you lost your life. Somebody ordered you killed. So you lost your identity, you lost your life, including your wife. So if you want to do something about it, why don't you go find out who did that? Like, you're playing defense all the time. So again, it's Bobby showing that he's a true friend for Spawn, whether Al realizes it or not. So meanwhile, after kind of an awkward moment of silence there, after Bobby says, "Yeah, even your wife," everybody's probably like, don't bring up his wife. But anyway, we do see one of the homeless guys running off with a suspicious look on his face. So meanwhile, we check in at the hospital again. This ties into the Blood Feud miniseries, which we haven't covered. But Twitch is in the hospital. He's all bandaged up. He's been hurt in whatever events happened in the Blood Feud miniseries, and his partner Sam is there to check on him, saying, "I'm going to put everything else on the back burner, and I'm going to go find this Spawn guy. We have been doing other things. I've been focusing on Chief Banks and the evidence we have against him rather than focusing on Spawn, and now it's gotten my partner hurt, and that just can't be okay." But Twitch actually says, no, like, I hurt. I'm in a lot of pain, actually, but that's the last thing you should do. It's like, what I want you to do is forget about me. And if Chief Banks is tied into some child killer, you got to bring him down. I'm going to be in pain no matter what, but I'll be in more pain if Chief Banks gets away with what he did. So then Twitch's family shows up, and Sam kind of slinks off saying, "Hey, I'll take care of it, partner." So he comes around to Twitch's way of thinking, and it sounds like he's going to do what Twitch wants, which is interesting. You almost wonder what the heck's taken Burke so long at this point. He's got the evidence. So meanwhile, we see the homeless guy that ran off meets with that shadowy figure. And again, you can tell, first of all, if you've been reading, I think even without Violator on the cover, you would know who it is just based on the fact that he's got the glowing red eyes, the frizzy longish hair, the beer belly poking out from under the shirt. But the guy's basically filling Violator in on what Spawn's been saying, and Violator's like, "All right, get lost, but come back in a couple days. I'm gonna need your help setting up a trap for Spawn." On the next page, we check in with the headquarters of Heaven on Earth, and we see that Raphael is directing the repairs, and she's kind of beside herself with the fact that God let the Hellspawn go, and her assistant's saying, "What, remember what our leader said, that leader being God. The Spawn is acting the same way we would have," and she had to give it the benefit of the doubt. So Raphael's like, don't patronize me, Tiffany. I know what my job is." And we also learn that despite all the wreckage due to some magic, most likely, the building from the outside still looks normal. So nobody's suspicious of anything that's gone on in the tower. So then we check in on Jason Wynn, another one of the main characters right now in the story. And we see that the transfer that Terry Fitzgerald requested has gone through, and Wynn's worried. He got that call from Chief Banks last issue. Somebody knows about Chief Banks' tie to the child killer Billy Kincaid. Now the question becomes, can they tie Banks back to Wynn? So Wynn's worried. He doesn't know who he can trust. He thought maybe it was Terry Fitzgerald because he thought Terry Fitzgerald Spawn. He knows that's not the case now, but he still doesn't trust Terry. He's like, he still has a stink about him. This whole setup is too convenient. The fact that, Banks is being exposed, and he's calling me, and he's worried, and Terry Fitzgerald's making this transfer right now. Like, it's all, suspicious in his mind. So Wynn is thinking, at least by having Terry in my department, it'll be that much easier to keep him under surveillance. Now, unbeknownst to Wynn, that's the whole reason that unbeknownst to Wynn, that's the whole reason Terry Fitzgerald transferred into his department in the first place, because Terry Fitzgerald's trying to get close to Wynn so he can keep him under surveillance. So a little bit of a cat and mouse going on there. So Meanwhile, a few nights later, Spawn runs into the guy um, that that went and reported to the Violator, and the guy calls him Al Simmons, and Al freaks out, right? Like almost nobody knows that Al Simmons and Spawn are one and the same. He's been trying to protect his identity. Obviously, he cares about Terry. He cares about Wanda. The last thing he would want is for that to get out, right? Because, I mean, his friends call him Al, but they don't know that his full name is Al Simmons, right? Like, that's the part that really kind of throws him into a tizzy. And so he attacks the guy. He's like, "What did you call me?" And the guy's like, he does a good job. He's probably genuinely scared. If he's acting, he does a good job because he definitely seems scared. He's got tears coming out of his eyes. And when Spawn asks him, "Well, how do you know my name?" He's like, "I don't know. Some stranger came up. He said he wanted to meet you. He said I'm supposed to say three things: Al Simmons, Jason Wynn, something about Wanda, and he wants to meet you." And Spawn's freaking out, like, "Why me? Why? What? What does this guy want?" And the homeless guy's like, "I'm just a messenger. I don't know anything more than that. That's just all he told me to say." Well, Spawn probably thinks he's being smart here. And he's like, "Well, I'm not going to go fall into the trap. You go and tell the stranger that he knows where he can find me. I'm not going to him. He needs to come to me." So he releases the homeless guy, and the homeless guy goes running off. So Spawn thinks he's being clever here, because what he's really doing by scaring this guy and telling him what he told him about, "Hey, tell the guy that he can find me. He knows where to find me." He knows the guy's going to immediately go running back to that quote unquote stranger. So Spawn follows him because he wants to know, obviously, who's this guy who knows who's his identity is. So we see the homeless guy meet back up with the Violator, and the Violator's asking him, "Did he take the bait?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, I think so. I'm sure he's following me like he wanted. What's next?" And the Violator responds, "Thanks, I'll take it from here. You served my purpose." And he rips the guy's heart out, like we've seen the Violator do so many times before, right? So even if we didn't already know who he was by the silhouette in the shadow, or by the fact he's on the cover, this has got to be a dead giveaway right here when he rips the guy's heart out. So Spawn shows up just a few seconds later, finds the guy dead, finds his heart ripped out, and trying to figure out who might have done this. The kill is still fresh when he gets ambushed from below by the Violator, and he doesn't seem particularly surprised that it's the Violator who set all this up. So the Violator starts laying into Spawn. Last time they fought, Malbolgia showed up and basically ridiculed both of them for wasting their energy and wasting their time fighting against each other when they're supposed to be on the same team. And the Violator's motivations are still the same. He believes that he should be one of the lieutenants in Malbolgia's army, not these hell spawns that are so often failures and underdeliver. He's a native of hell, and he deserves to be have a commanding role in the army. And so he's ridiculing Spawn. He's like, "Man, you've become a farce. You've learned nothing. It's an honor to be chosen, and you're just wasting it." And Spawn's like, "You know what? Hell picked me. So they must see something in me, not the other way around. So I don't really give a damn what you think." And again, Hell's a Violator rather saying, "You're a fool. I don't know why you were picked. It's ridiculous. But as long as you are around this area, I want to know where I can find you night and day, because it's my job to keep an eye on you." And Spawn's like, "Well, fine, but stay away from my friends." And Violator's like, "You know what? I don't really care. Every sound, every shadow, whatever you do, whether you're hanging out with them or not, I need to know where you are." And then he threatens him. He says, "Because one day I'm going to come to obliterate you and prove that I'm worthy of being in the army and you're not." So it's almost like the Violator saying, "Yeah, make sure I know where you are. Hang around, because I know you're going to screw up at some point, and I'm going to be allowed to kill you." So, again, they're very much bickering like brothers, which they sort of are in a way, as much as they're, Violator's not really human. But the Violator goes on to say, it's like, "I can kill you anytime I want, basically. But, I have to have approval. So just remember how good you are at quitting things and people, right? And that pisses Spawn off. And so they start fighting, and we're told about how they're in kind of a rundown part of the sewer. It's not exactly new infrastructure, and so it doesn't take long before they break something, right? They break this giant pipe, and countless gallons of sewage, countless tons, we're told, countless tons of sewage come exploding out, and they wash Violator away. And Spawn's left wondering where he is, worried that the Violator's still down there in some unexplored part of the sewer unharmed. And he's just kind of at the mercy of waiting for the Violator to attack him again. So it's interesting because the Violator, like, why do this? If you know where Spawn is and you're keeping an eye on him anyway, like, why attack him and kind of show your hand, right? Like, what are you really doing? What's really the purpose? I mean, you're telling him he's not worthy, that he has no honor. It's like, what honor, right? Like, does he somehow think by staging this attack he's going to change Spawn's mind? Because remember, Spawn had that hours-long talk with his buddies talking about leaving, right? And Violator's like, well, I don't think that would be a good idea for you to leave. We wouldn't want anything to happen to your friends if you did leave. And it's what I was talking about earlier. Like, it's such a silly thing for Al to consider, because even if he does leave, that doesn't remove the threat that his friends are exposed to just by the fact that he knows them, right? So I don't know. It doesn't necessarily have a ring of truth what the Violator is saying here. Like, why wouldn't Spawn just do what he wants? As far as the Violator saying, "Well, I can kill you anytime I want," right? That doesn't make sense either, because Malbolgia himself said, well, neither one of you guys can be killed by the other, which, maybe if they expend enough energy, possible, I guess, maybe. But anyway, it's an interesting story in as much as it brings the Violator back onto the playing field in a way. He hadn't shown up in quite a while. And we do in the book check in on everybody else, right? Like, we check in on Sam and Twitch, we check in on the heaven on earth people, the angels that are on earth. We check in on Jason Wynn and Terry Fitzgerald. So it does check all the boxes, but you kind of wonder, like, beyond that, what did it really accomplish? The art is good. It's a little, I almost feel like maybe McFarlane did a little bit more of the line work than he normally has done on the last couple of issues. And the reason I say that is because, I've talked in the past about how when McFarlane draws, it feels like the anatomy and the facial expressions are a little more exaggerated than what Capullo does, but this might just be Capullo evolving a little bit. The last thing that I'll say, and let me share my screen one more time. There are a couple of important pieces of information on the last page. That's kind of the last thing I'll say about this issue. When all of that sewage comes from the broken pipe and washes Violator away, and Spawn is kind of under the water, we're told, like another piece of garbage, Spawn is like tossed side to side, and all he can think about is his survival. And he learns along with us that his body, which is now composed of necroplasm or psychoplasm, it's sometimes called, he still needs to breathe. He still needs oxygen. Like, when he surfaces out of that sewage, which is just disgusting, right? But anyway, when he surfaces, he gasps for air, and we're told that his body still needs oxygen. So that's interesting, right? Like, why would his body need oxygen? I mean, he doesn't even need a heart. He doesn't need like proper bone and cartilage structure in his knee in order to walk. Like, why would he need oxygen? Why would he actually need to breathe? You wonder if it's something that's like psychological, right? Like, he thinks that his body needs air, so it needs air. And you also wonder, like, okay, so when you go to the place, so does that mean there's atmosphere in hell? Because we know he's been to hell. Like, there's oxygen, there's air you can breathe down there. That's kind of interesting. And the other thing that I'll point out is that we get a counter, 6887. So it's a little lower than the last time we saw it. And not sure what the reasoning for that is, because it doesn't really appear that he used any energy throughout the issue. So anyway, that's spawn number 33. Violator's back, and we'll see if there's more fights between him and Spawn to come, because the Violator certainly jealous of Spawn's place, potential place in the armies of hell. So anyway, that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it as always, and we'll talk to you next time.